dancing asparagi are only for premieres, not live shows. And howdy, everyone. Welcome to the word number 224, if you can believe that. Howdy, Dee. Howdy, Lynn. Howdy, Glenna. Howdy, Matayahu. How is everybody this beautiful day of rest?
We're doing well here. It's beautiful. It's cold as the dickens, but a lot colder than it's supposed to be for November.
It's
perfect weather here.
It's like 26 degrees with like 10 degrees or lower wind chill.
Well, we're all divvied up for winter here in Arizona. It's probably only going to get up to like 70 today.
It's supposed to be 90 by this next weekend, so.
Living in AZ instead of AR.
Right? Got the A to Z covered. All right. So we are continuing in Jasher today. That if you want, you can read along there at sacredtext.com. They have it. Remember, the Word Study series is for all those seeking out Yah, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob through his Son, Jesus Christ, Yeshua Messiah. All are welcome. Keep questions and observations on the topic of the day's reading. Today that will be Jasher, chapters 66, 67, 68, 69, and 70. Anybody else got anything else? Okay, let's pray in. Heavenly Father, thank you very much for bringing us together in this wonderful family and fellowship that you've given us. We're very grateful for this. And we would just ask that you pour out your spirit of knowledge, understanding, and discernment on everybody here now and in the future so that they get the message from this reading that you need us to have. And we would also like to thank you and give you praise for those that have been healed with any illness that they're dealing with, and ask for continued healing on those that still need it, physical or spiritual. Thank you, Father. Bless you in Jesus Yeshua's name. Amen. All right. Let's do this. We'll do the bulk reading again, shall we? The bulk reading. Gonna get your reading fiber in today, everybody. Jasher, chapter 66. Okay. At that time died Hadad, the son of Bedad, king of Edom, and Samlah from Mesrekah, from the country of the children of the east, reigned in his place, in the 13th year of the reign of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, which was the 125th year of the Israelites going down into Egypt. Samlah had reigned over Edom 18 years. And when he reigned, he drew forth his hosts to go and fight against Zepho, the son of Eliphaz, and the children of Chittim, because they had made war against Angeas, king of Africa, and they destroyed his whole army. But he did not engage with him, for the children of Esau prevented him, saying he was their brother. So Samlah listened to the voice of the children of Esau and turned back with all his forces to the land of Edom, and did not proceed to fight against Zepho, the son of Eliphaz. And Pharaoh, king of Egypt, heard this thing, saying, Samlah, king of Edom, has resolved to fight the children of Chittim, and afterward he will come to fight against Egypt. And when the Egyptians heard this matter, they increased the labor upon the children of Israel, lest the Israelites should do unto them as they did unto them in their war with the children of Esau in the days of Hadad. So the Egyptians said unto the children of Israel, Hasten and do your work, and finish your task, and strengthen the land, lest the children of Esau, your brethren, should come to fight against us, for on your account will they come against us. And the children of Israel did the work of the men of Egypt day by day, and the Egyptians afflicted the children of Israel in order to lessen them in the land. But as the Egyptians increased the labor upon the children of Israel, so did the children of Israel increase and multiply, and all Egypt was filled with the children of Israel. And in the 125th year of Israel's going down into Egypt, all the Egyptians saw that their counsel did not succeed against Israel, but that they increased and grew in the land of Egypt, and the land of Goshen were filled with the children of Israel. So all the elders of Egypt and its wise men came before the king and bowed down to him and sat before him. And all the elders of Egypt and the wise men thereof said unto the king, May the king live forever. Thou didst counsel us the counsel against the children of Israel, and we did unto them according to the word of the king. But in proportion to the increase of the labor, so do they increase and grow in the land. And behold, the whole country is filled with them. And now, therefore, our Lord and King, the eyes of all Egypt are upon thee to give them advice with thy wisdom, by which they may prevail over Israel to destroy them, or to diminish them from the land. And the king answered them, saying, Give you counsel in this matter, that we may know what to do unto them. And an officer, one of the king's counselors, whose name was Job, from Mesopotamia, set in the land of Uz, answered the king, saying, If it please the king, let him hear the counsel of his servant. And the king said unto him, Speak. And Job spoke before the king, the princes, and before all the elders of Egypt, saying, Behold, the counsel of the king, which he advised formerly respecting the labor of the children of Israel, is very good, and you must not remove it from them that labor forever. But this is the advice counseled by which you may lessen them, if it seems good to the king to afflict them. Behold, we have feared war for a long time, and we said, When Israel becomes fruitful in the land, they will drive us from the land if a war should take place. If it please the king, let a royal decree go forth, and let it be written in the laws of Egypt, which shall not be revoked, that every male child born of the Israelites, his blood shall be spilled upon the ground. And by your doing this, when all the male children of Israel shall have died, the evil of their wars will cease. Let the king do so, and send for all the Hebrew midwives, and order them in this matter to execute it. So the thing pleased the king and the princes, and the king did according to the word of Job. And the king sent for the Hebrew midwives to be called, of which the name of one was Shephrah, and the name of the other Puah. And the midwives came before the king and stood in his presence. And the king said unto them, When you do the office of a midwife to the Hebrew women, and see them upon the stools, if it be a son, then you shall kill him. But if it be a daughter, then she shall live. But if you will not do this thing, then I will burn you up and all your houses with fire. But the midwives feared God and did not hearken to the king of Egypt, nor to his words. And when the Hebrew women brought forth to the midwife son or daughter, then did the midwife do all that was necessary to the child and let it live. Thus did the midwives all the days. And this thing was told to the king, and he sent and called for the midwives, and he said to them, Why have you done this thing, and have saved the children alive? And the midwives answered and spoke together before the king, saying, Let not the king think that the Hebrew women are as the Egyptian women, for all the children of Israel are hale, and before the midwife comes to them, they are delivered. And as for us, thy handmaids, for many days no Hebrew woman has brought forth upon us. For all the Hebrew women are their own midwives, because they are hale. And Pharaoh heard their words and believed them in this matter. And the midwives went away from the king, and God dealt well with them, and the people multiplied and waxed exceedingly.
Chapter 67. There was a man in the land of Egypt of the seed of Levi, whose name was Amram, and the son of Kehath, the son of Levi, the son of Israel. And this man went and took a wife, namely Jochebed, the daughter of Levi's, his father's sister, and she was 126 years old. And he came unto her. The woman conceived and bare a daughter, and she called her Miriam, because in those days the Egyptians had embittered the lives of the children of Israel. And she conceived again and bare a son, and she called his name Aaron, for in the days of her conception Pharaoh began to spill the blood of the male children of Israel. In those days died Zepho, the son of Eliphaz, son of Esau, king of Kittim, and Janus reigned in his stead. And the time that Zepho reigned over the children of Kittim was 50 years, and he died and was buried in the city of Nabdah in the land of Kittim. And Janus, one of the mighty men of the children of Kittim, reigned after him, and he reigned 50 years. And it was after the death of the king of Kittim that Balaam, the son of Beor, fled from the land of Kittim, and he went and came to Egypt, to Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Pharaoh received him with great honor, for he had heard of his wisdom, and he gave him presents and made him for a counselor and aggrandized him. And Balaam dwelt in Egypt in honor with all the nobles of the king, and the nobles exalted him because they all coveted to learn his wisdom. And in the 130th year of Israel's going down to Egypt, Pharaoh dreamed that he was sitting upon his kingly throne, and lifted up his eyes and saw a man standing before him, and there were scales in the hand of the old man, such scales as are used by merchants. The old man took the scales and hung them before Pharaoh. And the old man took all the elders of Egypt and all its nobles and great men, and he tied them together and put them in one scale. And he took a milk kid and put it in the other scale, and the milk kid prepondered over it. And Pharaoh was astonished at this dreadful vision, why the kid should preponder over all. And Pharaoh awoke, and behold, it was a dream. And Pharaoh rose up early in the morning, and he called his servants and related to them the dream, and the men were gratefully afraid. And the king said to all of his wise men, interpret, I pray you, the dream which I dreamed, that I may know it. And Balaam the son of Beor answered the king and said unto him, this means nothing else but a great evil will spring up against Egypt in the latter days. For a son will be born to Israel who will destroy all Egypt and its inhabitants, and bring forth the Israelites from Egypt with a mighty hand. Now therefore, O king, take counsel upon this matter, that you may destroy the hope of the children of Israel and their expectations before his evil arise against Egypt. And the king said unto Balaam, and what shall we do unto Israel? Surely after a certain manner did we at first counsel against them, and could not prevail over them. Now therefore give you also advice against them, by which we may prevail over them. And Balaam answered the king, saying, send now and call the two counselors, and we will seek what they advise is upon this matter, and afterwards thy servant will speak. And the king sent and called his two counselors, Reuel the Midianite and Job the Uzite, and they came and sat before the king. And the king said to them, behold, you have heard both the dream which I have dreamed, and the interpretation thereof. Now therefore give counsel and see what is to be done to the children of Israel, whereby we may prevail over them, before their evil shall spring up against us. And Reuel the Midianite answered the king and said, may the king live forever. If it seems good to the king, let him dissent from the Hebrews and leave them, and let him not stretch forth his hand against them. For these are they whom the Lord chose in the days of old, and took as the lot of his inheritance from amongst all the nations of the earth and the kings of the earth. And who is there that stretched out his hand against them with impunity, of whom their God was not avenged? Surely thou knowest that when Abraham went down to Egypt, Pharaoh, the former king of Egypt, saw Sarah, his wife, and took her for a wife, because Abraham said, she is my sister. For he was afraid lest the man of Egypt should slay him on account of his wife. And when the king of Egypt had taken Sarah, then God smote him and his household with heavy plagues, until he restored unto Abraham his wife Sarah. Then he was healed. And Abimelech the Gerarite king of the Philistines, God punished on account of Sarah, wife of Abraham, in stopping up every womb from man to beast. When their God came to Abimelech in the dream of night and terrified him in order that he might restore to Abraham Sarah, whom he had taken. And afterward, all the people of Gerar were punished on account of Sarah, and Abraham prayed to his God for them, and he was entreated of him, and he healed them. And Abimelech feared all this evil that had come upon him and his people, and he returned to Abraham his wife Sarah, and gave him with her many gifts. He did so also to Isaac when he had driven him from Gerar, and God had done wonderful things to him, that all the water courses of Gerar were dried up, and their productive trees did not bring forth, until Abimelech of Gerar and Ahuzath, one of his friends, and Phicol, the captain of the host, went to him, and they bent and bowed down before him on the ground. And they requested of him to supplicate for them, and he prayed to the Lord for them. And the Lord was entreated of him, and he healed them. Jacob also, the plain man, was delivered through his integrity from the hand of his brother Esau, and the hand of Laban the Syrian, his mother's brother, who had sought his life. Likewise from the hand of all the kings of Canaan, who had come together against him and his children to destroy them. And the Lord delivered them out of their hands, and they turned upon them and smote them. For who had ever stretched forth his hand against them with impunity? Surely Pharaoh, the former, thy father's father, raised Joseph the son of Jacob above all the princes of the land of Egypt when he saw his wisdom. For through his wisdom he rescued all the inhabitants of the land from the famine. After which he ordered Jacob and his children to come down to Egypt, in order that through their virtue the land of Egypt and the land of Goshen might be delivered from the famine. Now therefore, if it seems good in thine eyes, cease from destroying the children of Israel. But if it not be thy will that they shall dwell in Egypt, send them forth from here, that they may go to the land of Canaan, the land where their ancestors sojourned. And when Pharaoh heard these words of Jethro, he was very angry with him, so that he arose with shame from the king's presence, and went to Midian, his land, and took Joseph's stick with him. And the king said to Job the Uzite, What sayest thou, Job? And what is thy advice respecting the Hebrews? So Job said to the king, Behold, all the inhabitants of the land are in thy power. Let the king do as it seems good in thy eyes. And the king said unto Balaam, What dost thou say, Balaam? Speak thou a word that we may hear it. And Balaam said to the king, Of all the kings he counseled against the Hebrews will be delivered, and the king will not be able to prevail over them with any counsel. For if thou thinkest to lessen them by flaming fire, thou canst not prevail over them. For surely their God delivered Abraham their father from Ur of the Chaldeans. And if thou thinkest to destroy them with a sword, surely Isaac their father was delivered from it, and a ram was placed in its stead. And if with hard and rigorous labor thou thinkest to lessen them, thou wilt not prevail even in this. For their father Jacob served Laban in all manner of hard work and prospered. Now therefore, O king, hear my words, for this is the counsel which is counsel against them, by which thou wilt prevail over them, and from which thou shouldest not depart. If it please the king, let him order all their children which shall be born from this day forward to be thrown into the water, for by this canst thou wipe away their name, for none of them nor their fathers were tried in this manner. And the king heard the words of Balaam, and the thing pleased the king and the princes, and the king did according to the word of Balaam. And the king ordered a proclamation to be issued and a law to be made throughout the land of Egypt, saying, Every child born to the Hebrews from this day forward shall be thrown into the water. And Pharaoh called unto all of his servants, saying, Go now and seek throughout the land of Goshen, where the children of Israel are, and see that every son born to the Hebrews shall be cast into the river, but every daughter you shall let live. And when the children of Israel heard this thing which Pharaoh had commanded, to cast their male children into the river, some of the people separated from their wives, and others adhered to them. From that day forward, when the time of delivery arrived to those women of Israel who had remained with their husbands, they went in the field and brought forth there, and they brought forth in the field and left their children upon the field and returned home. And the Lord, who had sworn to their ancestors to multiply them, sent one of his ministering angels, which are in heaven, to wash every child in water, to anoint and swathe it, and put it into his hands 2 smooth stones, from one of which it sucked milk, and from the other honey, and he caused hair to grow to its knees, by which it might cover itself, to comfort it and cleave to it through his compassion for it. And when God had compassion over them and had desired to multiply them upon the face of the land, he ordered his earth to receive them, to be preserved therein till the time of their growing up. After which the earth opened its mouth and vomited them forth, and they sprouted forth from the city like the herb of the earth and the grass of the forest, and they returned each to his family and to his father's house, and they remained with them. And the babes of the children of Israel were upon the earth like the herbs of the field, through God's grace to them. And when all the Egyptians saw this thing, they went forth, each to his field with his yoke of oxen and his plowshare, and they plowed it up as one plows the earth at seed time. And when they plowed, they were unable to hurt the infants of the children of Israel, so the people increased and waxed exceedingly. And Pharaoh ordered his officers daily to go to Goshen to seek for the babes of the children of Israel. And when they had sought and found one, they took it from its mother's bosom by force and threw it in the river. But the female child they left with its mother. Thus did the Egyptians do to the Israelites all the days.
Chapter 68. And it was at that time the Spirit of God was upon Miriam, the daughter of Amram, the sister of Aaron, and she went forth and prophesied about the house, saying, Behold, a son will be born unto us from my father and mother this time, and he will save Israel from the hands of Egypt. And when Amram heard the words of his daughter, he went and took his wife back to the house, after he had driven her away at the time when Pharaoh ordered every male child of the house of Jacob to be thrown into the water. So Amram took Jochebed his wife 3 years after he had driven her away, and he came to her, and she conceived. And at the end of 7 months from her conception, she brought forth a son, and the whole house was filled with great light, as of the light of the sun and moon at the time of their shining. And when the woman saw the child, that it was good and pleasing to the sight, she hid it for 3 months in an inner room. In those days, the Egyptians conspired to destroy all the Hebrews there, and the Egyptian women went to Goshen, where the children of Israel were, and they carried their young ones upon their shoulders, their babies who could not yet speak. And in those days, when the women of the children of Israel brought forth, each woman had hidden her son from before the Egyptians, that the Egyptians might not know of their bringing forth, and might not destroy them from the land. And the Egyptian women came to Goshen, and their children, who could not speak, were upon their shoulders. And when an Egyptian woman came into the house of a Hebrew woman, her babe began to cry. And when it cried, the child that was in the inner room answered it. So the Egyptian women went and told it to the house of Pharaoh. And Pharaoh sent his officers to take the children and slay them. Thus did the Egyptians to the Hebrew women all the days. And it was at that time, about 3 months from Jochebed's concealment of her son, that the thing was known in Pharaoh's house. And the woman hastened to take away her son before the officers came, and she took for him an ark of bulrushes, and daubed it with slime and with pitch, and put the child therein, and she laid it in the flags by the river's brink. And his sister Miriam stood afar off to know what would be done to him and what would become of her words. And God sent forth at that time a terrible heat in the land of Egypt, which burned up the flesh of man like the sun in his circuits, and it greatly oppressed the Egyptians. And all the Egyptians went down to bathe in the river on account of the consuming heat which burned up their flesh. And Bathia, the daughter of Pharaoh, went also to bathe in the river, owing to the consuming heat, and her maidens walked at the riverside, and all the women of Egypt as well. And Bathia lifted up her eyes to the river, and she saw the ark upon the water, and sent her maid to fetch it. And she opened it, and saw the child, and behold, the babe wept, and she had compassion on him, and she said, This is one of the Hebrew children. And all the women of Egypt walking on the riverside desired to give him suck, but he would not suck, for this thing was from the Lord, in order to restore him to his mother's breast. And Miriam, his sister, was at that time among the Egyptian women at the riverside, and she saw this thing, And she said to Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and fetch a nurse of the Hebrew women that she may nurse the child for thee?" And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Go." And the young woman went and called the child's mother. And Pharaoh's daughter said to Jochebed, "Take this child away and suckle it for me, and I will pay thee thy wages, 2 bits of silver daily." And the woman took the child and nursed it. And at the end of 2 years, when the child grew up, she brought him to the daughter of Pharaoh. And he was unto her as a son. And she called his name Moses, for she said, "Because I drew him out of the water." And Amram, his father, called his name Kabar, for he said it was for him that he associated with his wife whom he had turned away. And Jochebed his mother called his name Jekuthiel, because she said, "I have hoped for him to the Almighty, and God restored him unto me." And Miriam, his sister, called him Jared, for she descended after him to the river to know what his end would be. And Aaron, his brother, called his name Zadok, saying, "My father left my mother and returned to her on his account." And Kehath, the father of Amram, called his name Abigdor, because on his account did God repair the breach of the house of Jacob, that they could no longer throw their male children into the water. And their nurse called him Abi-Sosho, saying, "In his tabernacle was he hidden for 3 months on account of the children of Ham." And all Israel called his name Shemaiah, son of Nathaniel, for they said, "In his days God heard their cries and rescued them from their oppressors." And Moses was in Pharaoh's house, and was unto Bathia, Pharaoh's daughter, as a son. And Moses grew up among the king's children.
Chapter 69. And the king of Edom died in those days, in the 18th year of his reign, and was buried in his temple, which he had built for himself as his royal residence in the land of Edom. And the children of Esau went to Petor, which is upon the river, and they fetched from there a young man of beautiful eyes and comely aspect, whose name was Saul. And they made him king over them in the place of Samlah. And Saul reigned over all the children of Esau in the land of Edom for 40 years. And when Pharaoh, king of Egypt, saw that the counsel which Balaam had advised respecting the children of Israel did not succeed, but that still they were fruitful, multiplied, and increased throughout the land of Egypt, then Pharaoh commanded in those days that a proclamation should be issued throughout Egypt to the children of Israel, saying, "No man shall diminish anything of his daily labor. And the man who shall be found deficient in his labor, which he performs daily, whether in mortar or in bricks, then his youngest son shall be put in their place." And the labor of Egypt strengthened upon the children of Israel in those days. And behold, if one brick was deficient in any man's daily labor, the Egyptians took his youngest boy by force from his mother, and put him into the building in the place of the brick which his father had left wanting. And the men of Egypt did so to all the children of Israel, day by day, all the days for a long period. But the tribe of Levi did not at that time work with the Israelites, their brethren, from the beginning, for the children of Levi knew the cunning of the Egyptians, which they exercised at first toward the Israelites.
All right. Chapter 70. And in the 3rd year from the birth of Moshe, Pharaoh was sitting at the banquet, when Alpaphar, the queen, was sitting at his right, and Bathia at his left. And the lad Moshe was laying upon the bosom of Balaam, the son of Beor, and his 2 sons, and all the princes of the kingdom were sitting at the table of the king's presence. And the lad stretched forth his hand upon the king's head, and took his crown from the king's head, and placed it on his own head. And when the king and the princes saw the work which the boy had done, the king and princes were terrified. And one man and his neighbors expressed astonishment. And the king said unto the princes who were before him at the table, "What speak you, and what say you, O ye princes, in this matter? And what is it be the judgment against the boy on account of this act?" And Balaam the son of Beor the magician answered before the king of the princes and said, Remember now, O my lord and king, the dream which you did dream many days since, that which your servant interpreted unto you. And therefore this is the child from the Ivri children, in whom the Ruach Elohim. Let not my lord the king imagine that this youngster did this thing without knowledge, for he is an Ivri boy, and wisdom and understanding are with him. Although he is yet a child, and with wisdom has he done this, and chosen unto himself the kingdom of Mitzrayim. For this is the manner of all the Ivrim, to deceive kings and their nobles, and to do these things cunningly, in order to make the kings of the earth and their men tremble. Surely you know that Abraham, their father, acted thus, who deceived the army of Nimrod, king of Babel, and Abimelech, king of Gerar, and that he possessed himself of the land of the children of Cheth, and the kingdoms of the Canaan, and that he descended into Mitzrayim and said of Sarah his woman, She is my sister, in order to mislead Mitzrayim and her king. His son Yitzchak also did so when he went to Gerar and dwelt there, and his strength prevailed over the army of Abimelech, king of Pelitsim. He also thought, making the kingdom of the Pelitsim stumble, and saying that Rivkah, his woman, was his sister. Jacob also dealt treacherously with his brother, and took from his hand his birthright and his blessing. He went then to Padam Aram, to the house of Laban, his mother's brother, and cunningly obtained him, his daughter, his cattle, and all belonging to him, and fled away and returned to the land of Canaan to his father. His sons sold their brother Yaakov, who went down into Mitzrayim and became a slave, and was placed in the prison house for 12 years, until the former Pharaoh dreamed dreams and withdrew him from the prison house, and magnified him above all the princes in Mitzrayim on account of his interpreting his dreams to him. And when Elohim caused a famine throughout the land, he sent for and brought his father and all his brothers and the whole of his father's household, and supported them without price or reward, and brought the Mitzrayim for slaves. Now therefore, my lord king, behold, this child has risen up in their stead in Mitzrayim, to do according to their deeds, and to trifle with every king, prince, and judge. If it please the king, let us now spill his blood upon the ground, lest he grow up and take away the government from your hand, in the hope of Mitzrayim perish after he shall have reigned. And Balaam said to the king, Let us moreover call for all the judges of Mitzrayim and the wise men thereof, and let us know if the judgment of death is due to this boy, as you did say, and then we will slay him. And Pharaoh sent and called for the wise men of Mitzrayim. And they came before the king, and an angel of Yahuwah came amongst them. He was like one of the wise men of Mitzrayim. And the king said to the wise men, Surely you have heard what this Ivri boy, who is in the house, has done, and thus has Balaam judged in this matter. Now judge you also, and see what is due to the boy for the act he has committed. And the angel, who seemed like one of the wise men of Pharaoh, answered and said as follows, Before all the wise men of Mitzrayim, and before the king of the princes, if it please the king, let the king send for men, who shall bring before him an onyx stone and a coal of fire, and place them before the child. And if the child shall reach forth and his hand take the onyx stone, then he shall know that with wisdom has the youth done all that he has done, and we must slay him. But if he stretch forth his hand upon the coal, and we shall know that it was not with knowledge that he did this thing, and he shall live. And the saying seemed good in the eyes of the king and the princes. So the king did according to the word of the angel of Yahuwah. And the king ordered the onyx stone and the coal to be brought and placed before Moshe. And they placed the boy before them, and the lad endeavored to stretch forth his hand to the onyx stone, but the angel of Yahuwah took his hand and placed it upon the coal, and the coal became extinguished in his hand. And he lifted it up and put it in his mouth, and burned part of his lips and part of his tongue, and he became heavy in mouth and tongue. And when the king and the princes saw this, they knew that Moshe had not acted in wisdom in taking off the crown of the king's head. So the king and the princes refrained from slaying the child. So Moshe remained in Pharaoh's house, growing up, and Yahuwah was with him. And while the boy was in the king's house, he was robed in purple, and he grew amongst the children of the king. And when Moshe grew up in the king's house, Athaliah, the daughter of Pharaoh, considered him as a son, and all the household of Pharaoh honored him, and all the men of Mitzrayim were afraid of him. And he daily went forth and came into the land of Goshen, where his brethren, the children of Israel, were. And Moshe saw them daily in shortness of breath and hard labor. And Moshe asked them, saying, Wherefore is this labor meted out unto you day by day? And they told him all that had befallen them, and all the injunctions which Pharaoh had put upon them before his birth. And they had told him that the counsels which Balaam and the son of Beor had counseled against them, and what he had also counseled against him in order to slay him when he had taken the king's crown from his head. And when Moshe heard these things, his anger was kindled against Balaam, and he sought to kill him. And he was in ambush for him day by day. And Balaam was afraid of Moshe. And his two sons rose up and went forth from Mitzrayim, and they fled and delivered their souls, and betook themselves to the land of Cush, to Kikinus, the king of Cush. And Moshe was in the king's house, going out and coming in. Yahuwah gave him favor in the eyes of Pharaoh, and in the eyes of all of his servants, and in the eyes of the people of Mitzrayim, and they loved Moshe exceedingly. And the day arrived when Moshe went to Goshen to see his brethren, and he saw the children of Israel and their burdens in hard labor. And Moshe was grieved on their account. Moshe returned to Mitzrayim, came to the house of Pharaoh, and came before the king. And Moshe bowed down before the king. Moshe said unto Pharaoh, I pray you, my lord, I have come to seek a small request from you. Turn not away my face empty. And Pharaoh said unto him, Speak. And Moshe said to Pharaoh, Let there be given unto your servants, the children of Israel, who are in Goshen, 1 day to rest therein from their labor. And the king answered Moses and said, Behold, I have lifted up your face in this thing to grant your request. And Pharaoh ordered a proclamation to be issued throughout Mitzrayim and Goshen, saying, To you, all the children of Israel, thus says the king, For 6 days you shall do your work and labor, but on the 7th day you shall rest, and shall not perform any work. Thus shall you do all the days as the king and Moshe, the son of Athaliah, have commanded. And Moshe rejoiced at this thing, and the king had granted him. And all the children of Israel did as Moshe ordered, for this thing was from Yahuwah to the children of Israel. For Yahuwah had begun to remember the children of Israel, to save them for their sake of their fathers. And Yahuwah was with Moshe, and his fame went throughout Mitzrayim. And Moshe became great in the eyes of all of Mitzrayim, and in the eyes of all the children of Israel, seeking good for his people, Israel, and speaking words of peace regarding them to the king.
All right, let's go back to chapter 66. What do you got? Just a basic summary. The Hebrews are multiplying.
Yeah.
I thought about that, and it seems like, I don't know if anyone else has noticed this, but it seems like families that work in the physical trades, like construction, for instance, they tend to have a lot of children.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think that started here, or is that something the way it's always been? The harder you work, the more you got to get that stress out and have children.
Blessings.
Well, a couple of things. First, they're more physically healthy. You can do that. The other thing that came to my mind was, there's nothing new under the sun. So they had different caste systems, and the wealthy people, sit around and don't do anything. Well, they had birth control, and birth control is not new either.
Yep.
And so they didn't see the children as blessings, so they probably didn't want to have children, just like modern day, career people.
Mhm.
Well, another thing that jumped out at me in this chapter and the next got me to thinking that the way that they just kind of took it for granted, it seemed, that they could tell the midwives, kill these babies, and they would do it. And I was thinking, is that what the abortionists are? The doctors that do that? The nurses that help out with that? Are they the equivalent of a midwife that would do that?
And you know what else jumps out at me with all that going on? They're destroying their own workforce.
Yeah.
I mean, hello.
Well,
Right?
what are they doing now? What are they doing now? They're doing the same
Yeah,
thing.
Yeah.
the exact same thing.
I was just gonna say that.
Sorry, Jonathan, you were saying something.
No, that was pretty much it.
It seems like there is a lack of critical thinking when you're dealing with people of that mindset. They don't look at the big picture. And
Yeah.
they're very short-sighted.
Right. And they lie to themselves.
Well, the question I had on the Hebrew midwife, so I think it's in 22, it says the Hebrew sent for all of the Hebrew midwives. Now, are these women actually Hebrew, or are they midwives to the Hebrews? Because, I mean, they come back and report to the king and says, hey, the Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women. So who do these belong to?
Well, and they feared the Lord. They feared Yahweh. Okay, these were Hebrew women.
Well, were they? Because let's just use Babylon or as an all-encompassing term for government. Doesn't Babylon have agents that go out into the furthest reaches? And those people are supposed to follow Babylon's rules, right? I mean, you can go to the smallest podunk town anywhere, and there's going to be some kind of government office there.
Well, and okay, so what if just say they were not Hebrew, say they were Egyptian midwives that were for the Hebrews?
Right, that's what I was looking at it as.
Okay, so what if they are, well, like you're saying, they decide, well, like Glenna's saying, they decide to fear Yah instead of fear the government. The Father can move their minds and their hearts just as much to help out.
And he does. Okay, let's go to 67.
Oh, wait.
Okay.
Well, 20.
You're going backwards.
I do, I know, because we went way ahead.
Right?
Two things. 20 sounds like Esther. Sounds like the story of Esther.
Okay.
And then 21, I think, it sounds like this equivalent to what they did for the Messiah.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely a repeating technique.
Mm-hmm. Have they not learned anything yet?
That was also done when Abraham was born.
Mhm.
In Jasher. Yep. Okay, let's go to 67. In that, we have a continuation of this storyline, but we also have a bunch of stuff thrown in here. All right, we go back to the Esau storyline, talking about their kings. It talks about Moses's lineage here. The lineage of Moses.
Was that where they gave Yochebed's age? 100-something years old before she had her first child?
126 years old in verse 2.
Mhm.
Yep, before she had Miriam. They would have to be healthier, wouldn't they?
Yes. I wouldn't want to have a child right now.
I'd be like, whoa.
But then, on the other hand, how healthy would we be if we weren't eating all the processed poison
True.
garbage? I
We had
mean,
real food that wasn't contaminated with all
Yeah.
kinds of junk.
but I mean,
Yeah.
everybody that's reading today grew up in an era where it was like, woohoo, fake flavors of everything.
Hot
You know?
dogs.
And meals that were cooked in a complete meal cooked in an oven that had been frozen for weeks. That was 50% preservatives.
Cakes in a box.
Yep.
I just got finished watching a really good movie or video. This guy did a really good job of researching what's happening with our earth and just what's in our soil, what's been dumped and sprayed on our soil that's in the air. It's a wonder any of us are standing, quite frankly.
Aren't we an amazing creation?
Well, the Father has decided that he's got his group of people that he's going to get through it and showing us different things to counteract it, I guess. I don't know.
He made our bodies wonderful.
Yeah, it's a constant give and take that in military warfare. It started off with you got the blade, so then they came out with armor, then they came out with a better blade, they came out with better armor, then they came out with guns. Then it was a long time till they got better armor. And now they're back to most combat guns can defeat that stuff, and they're starting to work on armor. You wouldn't even believe. You'd be like, oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
But same thing, back and forth. They poison us. We figure a way around it. They try to kill us. Around it.
Yeah, and this bulletproof armor that they're working on is from the cross of goats and spiders using the silk from the milk.
That's one of them.
Uh-huh. Weird.
I'll pass. Thank you.
Well, so something since I was reading, I didn't get to write down which verses they were, but
Mhm.
it was saying that the land was blessed because of the presence of Israel. And I think about that right now. I bet you if you looked around at the different places where the Father's got us all planted,
Yep. And look at the end of this chapter though, too, because it seems by the way it's described, it's a miraculous thing. The children are brought up through the crops of the Egyptians and then returned to their parents. So then all the Egyptians go out to in spite and plow their fields under to kill the Hebrew children in spite, in hatred, and so they destroy their own crops that's going to be feeding them and their families in order to get this done. I think we're seeing something very similar right now. Okay, yes, Glenna.
Sorry.
You muted yourself.
I'm not muted.
There you go.
Okay, it just had a delay. Okay, I have written out in the side here next to 55 when it's talking about the stones of the, that they sucked on and things like that, that there's a reference or something that ties in with it in Ezekiel 16, also somewhere in Psalms I've notated, and then I have Deuteronomy 32:13.
No verses. Though.
I don't have the verses written out, but the only one that I have, like something was in Ezekiel 16 that I had made a notation to myself, and then then Deuteronomy 32:13, and then I started wondering, is this like an idiom as well, or I don't know. I mean, with God, anything is possible. But I find it interesting about how they were sending the women with their babies so that the babies would cry in the Hebrew houses and the other babies would answer them back. And I wondered if that's how they were doing their plowing. I don't know. It's just some thoughts.
So the Deuteronomy 32:13.
Yeah, what does that say?
It says he made him ride on the high places of the earth, that he might eat the increase of the fields, and he made him to suck honey out of the rock and oil out of the flinty rock.
Interesting.
Okay, cool. Yeah, all right. So yeah, it does kind of pertain to that.
Well, the one thing that I thought of, I think it's down in 56, where it talks about the earth opened up and received them, reminded me of Revelation 12:16, where the earth opens up to help the woman, to help the children of the woman.
And swallows the flood.
And swallows the flood.
Fascinating.
All right, let's go to 68. And that is basically, here's where we're starting with Moses after it recaps again that the children of the Hebrews are supposed to be killed off.
So Moses was a preemie?
That's what it sounds like.
7.
And just like Noah, he lit up the house when he was born, as described in Enoch.
Is that an idiom?
I don't know. Did he come out speaking praises like Noah did?
See, I've heard that the Noah and Enoch was actually not the Noah we think of, not the flood Noah.
What was the first part of that, Matt?
So I've heard that the Noah and Enoch is not actually talking about Noah, son of, from the line of Abraham. That's actually, Methuselah, sorry. That it was actually, it's talking about a different Noah, and that it had something to do with, like almost like Nephilim, but I don't know. I don't remember who I think it was Now You See TV. I saw do a study on it, that they were trying to say that it was a different Noah.
But doesn't it list his lineage?
Mm-hmm. And he married his half sister, or he married a great aunt. According to Enoch, he married a daughter of Methuselah. If that timeline is what I'm thinking, what I'm remembering.
I'll have to watch that again.
And when she was 90 years older than him, so and that would have made her almost 600 years old when she started having children.
No.
So Lynn, you don't want to have children now.
No.
Wait till you're like 600 years old and start having.
No. Be a piece of dust by then.
In 13, we see the bulrushes again. Isn't that what Jacob used? Was the bulrushes to increase his? Oh, no. That was Leah. Or was that the mandrakes? That was mandrakes. I'm
That was
getting
mandrakes. But I think you're right about, like, he put all the cows at the bulrushes, and then he set up the cedar stalks or whatever. He put the
I think
wood
so.
in there.
So that's interesting that we would see that again in association with something else.
Well, there's a lot of bulrushes.
And apparently,
Is that kind of like cattails or something?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what bulrushes are?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All those. Yeah.
Okay.
Those things are tough. We used to gather them when we were camping. They're pretty tough.
In the dictionary, it says a tall, rush-like water plant of the sedge family, native to temperate regions of the northern hemisphere. It has been widely used for weaving and has grown as an aid to water purification in some areas. 2, another term for cattail.
there you go.
The best part about it.
We had some of those out in our koi pond at one time when it was functioning. And I really liked the way they looked. It made me think of corn dogs. I love corn dogs.
They are edible, but you have to get them at the right time.
What, corn dogs? Or cattails?
I don't think those are really edible.
Waiting for the corn dog plant to ripen.
Like that said on that TV show talking about the swap meet. I can't believe I got socks and a corn dog. And lady tells him, just so you know, the corn dog's going to outlast the socks. So,
Glenna, you need to figure out how to make a healthy version of corn dogs.
I can use Hebrew National.
But what do
No.
you? What do you? The out part.
You use cornbread.
Okay.
Organic.
Well, of course. Okay. Bob and I tried to make corn dogs one time. Okay. And it busted my thermometer. Okay. I had a candy thermometer. The oil had mercury and everything. It was just like, and it just ruined everything.
I bet that was a lovely sight. That's up her kitchen.
would you like a side of expletives with your corn dog there? All right. Okay, so the rest of this pretty much parallels scripture with Moses being taken into the house of Pharaoh at the end of it by his daughter, right? So then we get to 69. All 9 verses of it. Let's see. You got to read that today? Okay.
She didn't get any names
We're into
today.
the long chapter. Long chapter of names.
I have a question.
Yes.
How did Levi get out of working?
He refused to abide by the contract
Mhm.
because that was
our
last reading.
reading.
Go ahead, Glenn.
Glenna.
Levites. They were the priests.
So when the Khan was presented to the Hebrews, the Levites said, no, don't do it. And they refused to do the work because it started out they were paying Egyptians and Hebrews. And the Levites said, we're not building you anything. So keep your money. But the other 11 tribes did.
Okay.
And then,
The contract.
why were they chosen as the priests? Okay.
Good point.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it'd be nice to have more witnesses, but that's pretty cool. Yeah. All right. So, what happens in this chapter here? Basically, Pharaoh's again saying, "Y'all are going to work hard." Oh, we also have an interesting thing that I noticed. Right? We have a King Saul over all the children of Esau in the land of Edom. And it just kind of struck me how when we have the genealogy of Cain in Genesis 4, you get this list of names that's then repeated in the lineage of Adam. And then here we have King Saul over Edom. I just found that an interesting parallel.
Mm-hmm. It is.
We also find out why Moses was slow of speech. Did that come through?
Is that in the next chapter?
That's in 70.
We're on
He
69.
ends-
69.
Oh, I thought we jumped into 70.
No.
Ah,
Okay, we'll go to 70. Okay, chapter 70. Whoop, I got to switch my own. There we go. Okay. So little baby Moses snatches the crown off of Pharaoh's head.
Sure, that went over well. Obviously, it didn't.
That Balaam, I just want to punch him in the throat.
He's an interesting character.
Isn't he?
The man has got prophecy. The father's given him prophecy.
But he does it for money, and he plays both sides. He speaks out of both sides of his mouth.
Politician.
Exactly.
I wondered who was going to say that. Leave it to the man in the plaid shirt.
But he was afraid of Moses, so.
It's interesting. He was afraid of Moses, and when Moses found out what was done, he wanted to kill him.
Mm-hmm. Says he was waiting for him.
He was
Looking
waiting.
for him. Yeah, it's like, dang.
Yeah. Moses had some temper.
Yeah, I don't remember that part.
So that, anyways, I think this is what Glenn is saying. Moses decided to chomp down on the hot coal while he was forced to. And so that's why he didn't like speaking.
He had a trauma to his mouth.
But that protected him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because the Pharaoh's like, okay, well, he can't do any harm now.
You think he sounded like Mushmouth?
I think he talked like my daughter after she got her tongue pierced.
Well, because when he went up to Mount Sinai the first time, and Yahuwah wanted him to speak, and he goes, but I'm, what was it? I'm slow of speech, or basically he had a speech problem. Okay. He wasn't just making an excuse. He had a physical problem speaking because of that injury that happened when he was little.
Hmm.
That protected his life.
Yeah, maybe some part of his tongue fell off. I don't know. Maybe the tip of its tongue, because you really need that to speak clearly with your S's and your
Or it scarred it so badly that it made it numb.
There's another one.
It says it made it heavy.
Well, I know my face doesn't work very well because of the degeneration, and it's numb. And sometimes I do have a hard time speaking and making my mouth do what it's supposed to do.
So it's interesting the way the chapter ends off. Right? And the Lord was with Moses, and his fame went throughout Egypt, and Moses became great in the eyes of all the Egyptians and in the eyes of all the children of Israel.
Got him a Sabbath.
But the Sabbath. Thank you.
You got him a Sabbath, right? Now, was it the Sabbath?
Probably, huh?
Yeah, because it says it was from Yahuwah.
Where is that? What verse?
It starts at 43, 40, 42, basically
49.
43, 44, 47.
49 is where it says it's from Yahuwah.
Yes. There it is. Yes. So it would have had
Because
to
he
be the Sabbath.
began to remember them.
I found it interesting way back up in 6. The whole household knew he was Hebrew, but based on this.
Well, could they hide it?
I don't know. That must be that they looked enough different.
Well, little kids run around and pull off their diapers.
Well, this is true. Especially little boys.
Yep. And he's circumcised. Would have been like, I've seen that before, where adults treat different children as a spectacle, as an entertaining spectacle. So no reason to think it wouldn't be different then at that time.
Well, I guess I was looking at a different type of appearance, because when Joseph was in Egypt, he wasn't even recognized by
Right.
his brothers. I figured, my thought was he had his head shaved, and he was they Egyptianized him. He had his coal eyeliner on, and, a shaved bald head. And
Okay. Anything else? All righty. Thanks for reading, Dee and Lynn and Glenna and Matt. Muchas gracias. Thanks, everybody, for showing up. Like, share, subscribe, ding-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling, ring the bell thingy.
Matthew's even here today. That's like, it is not my job.
Yep. So possibly going to be working on a couple of extra studies that I think you will all find very interesting.
Nice.
But at any rate, thanks for coming today. I hope this has been a help to you. If it has been, share it. Someone else out there needs it too. Until next time, love you all. We'll talk to you soon. Bye. Y'all come back now. You hear?